cut it any way you want to cut it. Race simply, ladies and gentlemen, in America is the fact that we don't look alike, and it's the dumbest thing in the world because there's one race, and that's the human race. We have different ethnic backgrounds, we have different cultural experiences, we have different tastes and various things, but that's the difference, and the only thing we all have in common is our difference.
The question is, on the 25th of September, 1968, in Charlotte, North Carolina, celebrating 120 years of just a little old black paper that's trying to honor people who deserve to be honored, trying to raise a little money for some child who just needs a little push, a little help, a little encouragement. What can an humble soul say at such a time as this?
Stephen Curry, the oldest son of the man being honored this evening, Del Curry. My mom and dad send you their most sincere apologies for not being here this evening to accept this award. However, it is an honor for me, as well as my brothers and sisters who are also here tonight, to stand before you as the Charlotte Post honors our dad as Professional Sports Person of the Year. Though my dad no longer plays basketball here in Charlotte for the Hornets, this town and this community remains as our home and will always be special to him. On behalf of my dad and all that he, Jeff Hood, and the Del Curry Foundation are doing and are planning to do for the youth of this community, I accept this award for him. Thank you.
Just look around this room again. Take a look around this room. It's a room full of winners, folks. This is a room full of winners. What's different about this room and the people here? What makes you different from others who are not here and who are not winners? I'll tell you what's different. How did we, before I do that, let me ask you this. How did we make our dreams become real? How did we do it, Gerald? How did we make our dreams become real when others couldn't? I'll tell you why. It's because someone taught us that whatever our minds can conceive, our bodies can achieve.
So many times as we begin to look at young people today, I think we're in serious trouble when we have more African-American males in prison than we have in colleges and universities. And so we've become involved in reversing those numbers over the next 5 years. What is it, the calling on your life? What major goal or vision that you have, something that you'd like to see different, something that you'd like to do with your life at this point in time? You've been given the gift of life. Somebody said life is God's gift to us, and how we live our lives is our gift to God. What major goal? Osborne said, unless you attempt to do something beyond that which you've already mastered, you will never grow. Think of some major goal that you would like to achieve personally, professionally, and some social change you'd like to bring about. And don't complicate the process by asking how you're going to do it. How you're going to do it is none of your business. How? I think that's what Scripture reminds us. Lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy path. The way will come, the how will come. Whatever major goal that is, let us say together with power, feeling, and conviction, it's possible. Together, please.
I do not do this alone because God is with me every step of the way. And he walks with me, and he props me up when I stumble and picks me up when I fall. I have many people that do a lot of things for me, and it's only because of my friend, my family, and those around me that these things that I do can happen. So I thank you for honoring me, but the award really belongs to all of those that come together and help me to do the things that I do, including Gerald Johnson, who serves on our Community Building Initiative Task Force, looking at disparity in the court system, and Calvin Murphy, who I saw out here earlier, and many of you, Judge Ricky McCoy Mitchell, I thank you.
Board of First Tee Golf, a nonprofit program set up to introduce golf to disadvantaged kids. Ladies and gentlemen, the Charlotte Post Entrepreneur of the Year, Carrie Mitchell.
Good evening. First of all, I'd like to thank my lovely wife, Vanessa, and also Gerald and Bob. I'm from Richmond, Virginia. I have deep roots in black newspaper. My great-uncle started the first black newspaper in Richmond, Virginia in 1886, John Mitchell.
And this work that this fine newspaper does is so important. Sometimes things have importance beyond your community that cannot be appreciated except by those who don't live in it. I live in St. Kitts now, in the Caribbean. And I know the value of a newspaper that provides a medium for the black community to talk to itself. This is a very dangerous time for America. This is a very dangerous time for the world. For we are now in a period of jingoism, where the winds of war are blowing so loudly that virtually no other subject matter can be discussed or heard. My family left the United States about 2 weeks before 9/11. I came back the first time late in November after that had occurred. I came back to a different country. It felt less free than it had been. And it was never free. I had hoped that that horrific event in New York would cause Americans to examine themselves, to think in a thoughtful way about why any people, anywhere, could loathe us so much to do something like that. But I was naive, and the response has been anything but that. There has been no searching examination of ourselves, no understanding that for many countries around the world, 9/11 happens every day. No appreciation that in many places, although people condemn what happened, they have a difficult time being sympathetic to our country.
A poor teacher, a non-caring and non-committed teacher can destroy somebody's educational life. And the consequences are the same. And so it is vitally important that we do things to pick and identify and train the best teachers we can.
But what we know about change in these times is that there are people who, when change is coming, stand tall. In fact, there are people who create change, people who invite the idea that they would put their hands down.
I think it probably goes back to when I was a student at Johnson C. Smith many, many years ago. I had an instructor, his name was Dr. Steele, and one thing that he taught in his class was, what does the Lord require of these? To seek justice, love, mercy, and walk humbly with our God. And that kind of stuck with me. And so if from the time that I have been on this journey, if I have been able to inspire someone, I'm very happy that they did receive something from me.
After distinguishing herself as a teacher and assistant principal, she was asked by senior administrators and the school board to take over the helm at Albemarle Elementary School, becoming the state's first black principal of an all-white school. To the dismay of detractors, her outstanding performance dispelled the myth that black educators were incapable of successfully educating white students.
At that particular time, Martin Luther King was killed. Well, they decided that I would open Albemarle Road Elementary School. So that's how I got to that particular position. I had 534 white children and 1 black. With the teachers, they told me, well, you take as many black teachers as the other principals in that area have. Well, all of the other principals had 1 black teacher, so I took 6 or 7. Well, the people would come and intimidate my teachers, you know. For an instance, I was out off campus one day, and my secretary came and told me, said this man said he wanted to move, wanted you to take his child out of that, N-word teacher. I said, well, you can take your child out of the school, but I will not remove her. Well, he just, and I understand that he was supposed to be the Cyclops of the KKK. At that particular time, Mr. Poe was, he was a very, but he really stood up and he told them, he said, you have one of the best principals that we could have in any school situation. His wife came the next day and apologized. She cried. She said, all the things that your secretary said that he said them. She says, and I'm sorry.
While many fought for civil rights legislation through protest and demonstration, Roddy, a true visionary, made her contribution by developing and implementing an assembly of lasting educational systems that would edify and raise the conscience of people on both sides of the divide.
I want to say something to people who are in years to come who may be approaching my age. Know when to leave it for young folks, but don't stop being busy. As long as you are able to get up and go and do something, get up and go do something. Because if you sit down in retirement, it'll kill you. But as long as you're active, you may be slower, but as long as you're active, things are better for you. And I'm going to sit down with this one. There may be 1 or 2 or 3 politicians out there, active politicians. I've told some, but they have not heeded my word yet. Every time preachers started preaching about Jesus, they preached about him going into the marketplace. That's where the people are, in the marketplace. And I want to say to you young politicians, if you really want to know what's happening in your districts, go to the marketplace.
Especially for our children and young adults who habitually dream dreams of greatness. Thank you, Gerald and Bob Johnson and Charlotte Post Foundation for bringing us together where we can see such an engaging rainbow on the curves of this occasion to support top seniors in their educational ventures, and equally important, to address learning deficiencies among African American public school students with a focus on dropout rates.
The gap between the kids that we work with, I've been working with kids for 41 years. It's not the school, it's in the home and the community. Schools can't do everything. I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna take my seat because I'm headed to Angola Monday. 95% of the kids over there are illiterate. Can't read, can't write. When I started this program along with Adelaide Hunt, some of you remember Adelaide Hunt, a wonderful lady. We wanted to give our kids an opportunity to bridge the gap. Just think about it, if every church in this community would take a school or take a community and work in it. A lot of people say, well, that's money. It's no money in it, but the reward don't come on this side. The reward come on the other side. You can't expect to get rich doing the right thing always on this side. I have the president of my college here with me, Dr. Jimmy R. Jenkins, who has done more for Livingstone College in the last few years than we've had in some time. It's because he didn't go there and say, why can't we do this? He go there and dream things that never were and say, why not?
When it comes to the matter of rights, it's more than just a principle of our Constitution, although it is an important principle embedded in our Constitution. But unless we have full recognition of the rights of every group that has been denied rights, then we are denying a segment of the population the opportunity to participate fully in the population. I was born in Asheville, North Carolina, into a family of 2 parents and 7 children. I was the youngest of the 7th. In fact, I wasn't supposed to be here because after my mother had had 5 children, she was advised by her doctor not to have any more because she had a high blood pressure issue. So I'm thankful every day that she didn't listen to the doctor, because if she had, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you now. I don't know that law was so much a decision as it was a process. I grew up in the segregated South. Everything was segregated. And I think it was in junior high school, what they now call middle school, that I first started getting involved in addressing head-on the issue of racial segregation, which shaped everything I did. When I finished law school, I had already decided I was going to come back to the South and finish the job of trying to desegregate, bring about desegregation and equality in the South. And it was then that I met my partner to be, Julius Chambers, in New York one day when I went to the Legal Defense Fund to become a part of that program. And that's how I got into law, and that's how I got into Charlotte, was joining Chambers in his law firm, because I had planned to go to Asheville. The court order that had integrated and maintained an integrated school system here in Charlotte. Well, one case that I was fortunate to be a part of was a case that became known as the Wilmington 10 case. The Wilmington 10 case it has turned out to be one of the most important criminal cases in the history of North Carolina. The Wilmington 10 case was the case involving 9 young African Americans and 1 white woman who protested the manner of school desegregation in Wilmington because black children were not being treated equally to white children in their new environment. We fought it, and we eventually got that conviction overturned by the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals. It took a long time to do that. They were convicted in 1972. We didn't get the convictions overturned until, I think it was 1981. The other case that I was fortunate to participate in was the Charlotte school case, which was handled primarily by my law partner, Julius Chambers, and he brought about the segregation of schools not just in Charlotte, but established principles that affected all schools, school segregation cases in the nation. And I got involved in the second Swan case, I call it, when a white parent challenged the court order in North Carolina. That case went before a judge who had opposed the desegregation process from the beginning. So when that case came before Judge Potter in 1999, then he did what we could predict, and that is he found that the Charlotte school system was no longer a segregated system, and he lifted the court order. And just as we had predicted, within a very short time, a year or two, the Charlotte schools had gone from being the most desegregated school in the country to a almost completely new segregated system.
Fergie's impact on the region, the country, indeed many parts of the world, is really sort of subtle but easy to see. I think his legacy is as a person who has upheld, and I really mean this, the highest ideals of what it means to be a lawyer.
Thanks again to the Charlotte Post Foundation. On behalf of all the young African American boys and girls who have a tremendous amount of potential, but it just needs to be realized. Thank you for being intentional and helping uncover the best in our youth.
We've always cherished and appreciated education. And don't let people try to turn you in a different direction, because they come from kings and queens. How babies go to school and kindergarten, their eyes are like spotlights. They're so bright, they want to learn. And when they get to 4th grade, we start labeling them. Okay? That's our fault, adults. We need to take that responsibility back and make sure that every one of our children get the very best education that they're entitled to.
Aware, having that perspective, and knowing the shoulders that you stand upon perhaps gives you a sense of understanding that you're able to put into your work as you come into these hallways every day here.
From the Nuba Mountains in South Sudan, I'm Steve Crump.
For now, we're at the White House. Steve Crump, WBTV, on your side.
Hello and welcome. I'm Steve Crump. Medgar Evers was a Mississippi native who was born in the town of Decatur. I'm Steve Crump in Johannesburg, South Africa. Thanks so much for watching.
Well, you know, I think from a very simple perspective, I've always thought of myself as a guy that just goes to work every day. This came after Ice Age. It's rated several food plants in Mississippi. I mean, I've always been curious about a lot of things, and I'll use this as an example. I can think back to where I was a senior in high school. I was the only African American in my class in this Third World Studies course. And it was when apartheid was at its peak in the mid-1970s. We had not heard the name Nelson Mandela or Desmond Tutu. And it was one of those things, just by the numbers in the aggregate, you had a population of 20 million, 16 million blacks being controlled by 4 million whites. And back in 1974, I knew that I would be in South Africa one day. And I went twice and did a couple documentaries from there.
2 to 3 million people call the South African township of Soweto home. And it is here that
You know, for me, and the story I like to tell about coming to Charlotte, I remember a June 1983 article in Black Enterprise magazine, and it profiled the city. Harvey Gantt was in his first term as mayor. There were things happening at the airport. There was Sam Johnson, Lincoln Mercury, and I could kind of read about this town that was part of the New South. And I just kind of said to myself, it's like, gosh, that's where I want to be. And, you know, fast forward some 35 plus years later, and I'm still here. And the fact that I've been able to, you know, make it work in some form or fashion, I think in some regards, it's just been pretty amazing.
I want to challenge you. You know, as African Americans, we are people who spend a lot of money. You know, African Americans are considered the people who spend the most money in stores. That should not be that we're spending the most money in stores, but we're not donating to causes that help to sustain and grow our children. I think a goal of 15,000 is good, but I think a goal of 15,000 is much too low. When I look at the folks that are under the sound of my voice right now, I know that we can do much, much, much more than 15,000. So I challenge you tonight that you don't leave here. And I understand it. Your corporation may have bought this table and you got a chance to come and get a free dinner. I got that. I got that. But in coming to get this free dinner, you also went out and you bought something. You bought some clothes, you bought some shoes, you bought some makeup, you bought something. You may have even bought some hair. You know what I'm saying? Just saying, just saying. I want to challenge you that whatever you spent on what you got on tonight, that you leave it in this room for these children.
Ultimately, what it comes down to is saying, am I being true to what I know God is calling me to do, to be, to say? Because ultimately, He's the one, right, that I'm really trying to please. And if I'm pleasing Him, it will resonate with those whom He desires.
In 1975, Mr. Bill Johnson Sr., the father of the Johnson brothers, who had worked at the newspaper for 5 years, decided to get a loan from the city to purchase the paper outright. Mr. Johnson saw something that no one else saw at the time, and it goes back to this word opportunity. The opportunity that a newspaper like the Charlotte Post would provide in shaping and sharing the news of Charlotte's Black community, a forum for connection and education so that people could advance their careers and their lives.